I am a black soldier who served the red, white, and blue. But sometimes I don't know. I went in at a time when there were a lot of civil rights issues in the Navy, and I didn't know that. The NAACP had been protesting because they didn't send hardly any African Americans to learn a trade in the Navy. Fortunate for me, while I was in boot camp, I got called to go to quartermaster school. In the Navy, a quartermaster is a navigator. It's a big deal to walk out with what they call a striker's patch. Striker's patch meant that you could only really be asked to do that job, specific job, and you would train in that for the rest of your career in the Navy. I caught it from both sides when I got on my ship. There were white guys that were very angry at me just because I was a quartermaster. I thought that my African American brothers were going to be very, very happy to see me in that type of a position. Until this guy, big black guy, stepped up to me and he said, "You know what? You think you tough shit, don't you? Just because you got that right there? Well, let me tell you, you ain't shit. You watch yourself around here. You understand? Because you're no different from any of us." That was a pretty tough moment. I was so confused because I didn't feel like I had any backup on the ship. As a matter of fact, that guy that said that to me later on, we became friends. But at that moment, I was like, whoa, what am I in for here? Things started happening. Like one day I go to my work area and the N-word, somebody's taken a Sharpie and they've written it all over the walls, N-word, and drew some pictures of, black guys with big lips. I was pretty pissed about that. So I went to the XO and I told him what had happened. Then he basically accused me of doing it and told me to get some paint and clean it up. These were the kind of things that began to build on me. You see, what people don't understand, when you're in the Navy and you're on a small ship, that becomes your world. And if your world is not a world where you feel welcome, it begins to play on you here. And that's what began to happen to me. While I was serving on the gun line, this guy comes to me and he says, "Towery, XO says that everybody below a certain grade has to hump shells. You're below that grade, so you report to the gun turret." I'd never put large ammo into the gun. I had no training in ordnance whatsoever. Never been trained in that. They gave me an on-the-spot training. I noticed that there was like some kind of powder over the shells, but I'm thinking, since I've never done this, I'm thinking, oh, so that must be like a powder to help the shells like go through easy when they're fired, So I didn't worry about it. I'm doing my job. I worked for a few hours doing that. I took a shower. I noticed that my skin was tingly. I went and got in my rack and I went to sleep. When I woke up, I felt funny. So I went to the bathroom, and when I looked in the mirror, my skin on my hands, my arms, my neck, and my face was all aflame and swollen. And pus was oozing out of it and encrusting over. At one point, after about 4 or 5 days on a ship like that, I thought I was going to die. Next thing I know, I was in a hospital in the Philippines. This Marine was laying in a cot next to me. He says, "Hey, buddy, where'd you get those Willie Peter burns?" And so I said, "Well, what is Willie Peter?" He said, "White phosphorus." First, I was very afraid. I said, somebody tried to kill me. So my life after that was just hell. I mean, there were things happening. There were memories trying to come back. They would make me depressed. I would have moments of complete lucidity, or so I thought. But every now and then I would still have those, I call it the feeling of dread. The first time I tried to commit suicide was because of that feeling. It was inescapable. It's the worst feeling in the world. It's the feeling of something terrible is going to happen to me any moment. And it swells up and it grows. And I just wanted it to stop. Instead of getting on my own pity pot when I feel that a lot of times, I work exhaustively for others. I started the Veteran Suicide Prevention Channel because I understand what that feeling is, what drives a lot of veterans to commit suicide, because I have been there. And I know that art is a great way to dispel that feeling out of your system. And I don't care what kind of art it is. It can be singing, acting, dancing, painting, sculpting. It's a form of release. I love being a part of Warrior Chorus because I think that it gives an outlet to veterans that is much needed. It makes you seek out what's really important through the process of studying the Greek literature and the Greek philosophy and the Greek characters. So the comparisons to the Greeks in those days and to who we are now in terms of war are unchanged. Here we are. We still have not evolved to a higher consciousness. We build up this idea of killing for the state being, this magnificent, brave thing that we're doing. It's hard to take another human being's life. Oh yeah, you might be hopped up and do it at the time that it needs to be done because you're put in a position of kill or be killed. That's what war is. You're going to kill or be killed. But the mind has to reconcile. I don't know. The spirit has to reconcile. I don't know what I should do when I'm seeing my people. Ooh, how they are treated sometimes. I wonder why is this nation so blind? Do I have the right to say what I see is wrong? Ooh, why shouldn't I stand for my love for goodness and justice is so strong? Shouldn't I be the one who stands for their liberty too?